The other big story this week is the coaching carousel. The NBA, I know some people aren't happy with some of the coaches being fired, but right now there is some big time firepower available in terms of coaching. The big news of the week, obviously, was the Sixers fire Doc Rivers.
About
Now you're
time.
gonna, now you're going to see my smirk, Gary. That same smart ass smirk you had earlier in the show when LeBron went down. To look at Tony's smirk. Even Tony's got it now. That's the
Y'all
same
deserve to
smile.
smirk. Y'all should smirk. It was 2 years too late. Y'all
I
deserve to
might,
smile and be happy.
I might drink to that, bro. I mean, Doc Rivers gets fired. I couldn't have been happier. I was happy when they hired him because Brett Brown was the fucking second worst coach I've ever seen. Uh, Now Doc Rivers has somehow moved into that category for me. Um, I just want to say that I don't know if Doc Rivers ever coaches in the NBA. I don't know what you guys feel about that. Um, I don't know if any franchise need any babysitters. Doc Rivers is a franchise babysitter, in my opinion, and I'm happy that the Sixers said we're not just gonna die with this dude because comes a time and a point when Joel Embiid might get tired, in my opinion, and I don't ever want that to happen. I don't want the possibility of losing Joel Embiid. I don't. I'd rather just lose 15 years with him. But Doc Rivers gets fired, and it looks like the Sixers are moving in the direction of. I mean, the first interview is Nick Nurse. Tony, I know you're a big Nick Nurse guy. Is there a chance the Sixers don't even interview anybody else and just go with Nick? I mean, we got look. Embiid's had words with Nick, but he's also had moments where he's embraced him. What direction do you want to see them go with their hire?
I would probably hire Nurse, but unless like I mean, I want Nurse, but I would be fine with D'Antoni. To be honest, it is if you bring in some good assistance with him, um,
Yeah,
which would
defense.
be key. Uh, but I think they are going to go through a long hiring process. Is from what it seems. It seems like we're going to at least bring in 5, 6 guys for interviews.
If I have one request, it's that Elton Brand doesn't do any interviews. That would be the if I had a lifeline to Daryl Morey, it would be don't let Elton Brand interview anybody, please.
If Elton Brand interviews, well, JJ Redick will be the next coach of the Sixers.
Yeah, I thought that was a joke when I seen it, but apparently there is some rumor to it. I just can't think that that's a serious thing.
Hey, you never know.
Now, a couple of the other guys that got fired, Monty Williams gets fired, Coach Budenholzer gets fired. Obviously, Nick Nurse interviewing with the Sixers. Toronto let him go. Cam, is there? Let me ask you a question. Kevin Durant's been through a bunch of coaches in his career. He's been through 2 coaches in Oklahoma City. He's been through 2 coaches in Brooklyn. He's been through now. He's going for a second coach in Phoenix. Um, I've never necessarily thought of him as a coach killer, but when you keep seeing him fail in the playoffs, he goes to Phoenix. He wants to play in Phoenix. He gets traded there, and they fire Monty. Um, what kind of direction do you want to see them go in? Because I think the Phoenix Suns, yeah, they got Devin Booker and Aiden, but it looks like they're going to go through a transition on their roster. Do they go with like one of the well-known guys that are available, or do you see them going a different route?
They're gonna go with someone proven, someone that's done it before. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they reach out and try Bud or someone like that because it's a veteran roster that needs to try to win now. They can't play around with any experimental head coaches or someone who's never done it before, or or anything like that. They have to bring in someone that's proven. So I think they'll bring in a proven guy, someone like Bud. Uh, Obviously, nurses interviewing with you guys. I think they'll look into that if that doesn't happen for you. Um, you know, it's just for me. Some of these coaches, they just are who they are. You know what I mean? Like, and they're gonna go somewhere else to do the same thing. But they'll go with someone like Bud and try to get it done and try to get it done again.
Now, I know Tony had mentioned Mike D'Antoni in Philadelphia, and Mike D'Antoni gets this rap that he just can't win with his style of offense. He's a guy that I would love to see the Sixers go after. Um, he was obviously an assistant here. He has his ties to James Harden in Houston. I know, Gary, you're not the biggest D'Antoni fan, right?
I mean, he's got a fun offense, but I mean, he's just got one of those teams where he scores 130, but his teams allow 145. Like it's like you said, if he brings the right defensive coaches, the right assistant coaches, I mean, he can definitely get it to work. His offensive plays might have been a little too soon in history, if that makes sense. Like the game might fit him more now with the way that it's being played. It's way faster. He might be able to help you guys a lot more in those situations, playing faster offense. His offensive coaching is amazing. Like what he does is elite in terms of developing teams and the scoring points.
I do worry that D'Antoni will make Embiid more of a way more of a stretch player because of his his pace offensively. Tony, did you ever come around to any of them D'Antoni videos? I know you were like trying to hype yourself up for the Sixers. I think between the Sixers and the Bucks, I mean, obviously,
I was watching some.
Do you? What job's more enticing, the Sixers or Milwaukee? Obviously, Milwaukee's an NBA champion. They both have them. He had a former MVP, Giannis.
Milwaukee.
Sixers have the MVP.
Well,
you got Giannis here shaking Monty's hand.
It's Brooke Lopez. He may not come back if they. So I mean, I'm still Milwaukee.
I mean, right out of the gate,
I have like Harden up in the air,
and if I'm Milwaukee, like I said, they just showed the picture of Monty congratulating Giannis after he won the title. That's the guy I want to see them go after. Coach Bud is very, very strong. So to lose him is a big deal. But Monty, I like, is a good fit there. I know a couple people weren't too fond of Monty and his coaching style, but I'm big on him. I think he's a good locker room guy. It was shocking to see Coach Bud get fired, but if anybody's going to walk in there and on that veteran team, I think Monty's a great fit. So that's the direction I'm leaning. Real quick, I want to touch on the Detroit Pistons. I know their coaching job isn't the most prestigious, but Dwayne Casey steps down as the head coach and moves to the president of basketball operations. He pulls a Brad Stevens move, and I'm ecstatic over it because I love Dwayne Casey. He's a great player, developmental guy. It looks like they're going to go after a guy, obviously not in the top 4 or 5 coaches because of all these other spots. I seen Kevin Ollie's name mentioned up there. Is anybody a Kevin Ollie guy? You want to see him come to the pros, or do you think he's more suitable for college basketball?
I mean, the way their team is built, he's good at developing young players from college and all that. So he may be a good short-term option, like 2 to 3 years. Helps give him a chance to develop a few of the young guys, and they'll see who turns out and who doesn't turn out. I mean, the next coach is most likely a sacrifice in Detroit anyways, because they're not going to be good for a little while.
Yeah, it's going to be more about developing players. And Toronto's another team. I I think their roster is such in flux that I don't know the direction that they're going to go. Still firing Nurse to me is crazy to me, but it is what it is. I don't like I said we're with all these jobs being available. It might be a long hiring process, so we still have some time early. I just wanted to kind of briefly mention it.
I want to see Mark Jackson get a job.
Okay, now we're going somewhere. Is Mark Jackson blackballed from coaching in the NBA, or do you
I mean, a lot of
honestly
people
think?
believe that, and I feel like maybe they just give him interviews to make it seem like he's not blackballed, but he just never going to get the job. But I mean, he might be good for a team like Detroit. He did most of the developing when it comes to Golden State. He did all the developing for Steve Kerr to come in and take over.
He's a tremendous X and O guy. I love him on the broadcast team. So he's a guy that I would like to see. He had unfinished business in Golden State. Steve Kerr came in and was just absolutely phenomenal out of the gate. So he kind of got forgotten about, but I am happy to see him get mentioned. The last year with the Warriors, they won 55 games.
He's like 10-4 in the playoffs. It was like his record or something.
Cam? Do you think this is the year that Mark Jackson actually has a realistic chance at a job, or do you still think they haven't warmed up to him because of he's got a lot of religious stuff that kind of cost him his job, and I know he made some remarks. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's been long enough. Come on, man.
Yeah, he not getting. I don't think he's getting no job, man. Unfortunately, I think it's more of the same where he'll get an interview, and he'll move on and they'll hire somebody else, and he'll be doing games on what was it, ESPN or TNT or ESPN. So I I just don't see him getting hired. I hope he does. Now I think he can do wonders for a young team, especially a team with a lot of talent that's on the up. They can use that, but I just don't see him getting hired.
Hey Tony, to round out our coaching conversation, is there any guys we haven't mentioned that you think? I know there's a couple assistants that you've been key on. Is there any guys that you think might get a surprise hire? I'm trying to think who is the Miami Heat longtime assistant to Eric Spoelstra. I looked him up earlier and I'm forgetting his name.
Chris Quinn.
Chris Quinn. Do you think, obviously they're in the middle of a run here, but do you think he's a guy that could be kind of pried away from Miami, or are you looking at a different assistant?
No, he's taking interviews. He'll get hired by someone. Maybe I could see Toronto going for him, even though they're in a rebuild. That's why I think they let go of Nurse, is because they're planning on trading away guys, and it was kind of like a mutual respect thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's a few guys like Kevin Youngs. He's getting an interview with the Suns. He was the lead assistant to Monty. He's going to get an interview with the Sixers. He was Brett Brown's head assistant in Philly. Way more knowledgeable than Brett. He actually is both sides of the ball. I actually had a conversation with him a few years ago. He really understands the game of basketball at a high level. And then I'll say Mark Jackson is not going to get a job.
Damn, Gary.
He kept Jokic off his MVP ballot. But that's not why. I just having flashbacks and PTSD to when he tried to make Draymond a corner 3-point shooter, and he was about to ruin the man's career until Steve came in and saved him.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know Mark Jackson was really bad coaching offense. Like defense, he was great. Teaching him how to win, he was great. But offensively they were.
My favorite assistant though is out of the Australian League, Chase Buford. He's 34 years old. He's the son of R.C. Buford. In 2 years in Australia, he won 2 championships, had a 69% win percentage, got a guy into the NBA. I don't think he's going to get a head job just because there's so many big names. But I do think he'll get a big assistant job and then eventually be a great coach in the
Is he
NBA.
a head coach in Australia or is he an assistant coach?
No, he's a head coach. He won 2
He's a head coach.
championships. Yeah.
Oh, okay. 34. That's pretty impressive, man.
Does he coach that team that beat the 76ers in the preseason?
No, he coached the Sydney Kings. He was Andrew Bogut is the GM. Him and Luke Longley was the GM of this team. So they sought out this kid, gave him a chance, and he's just phenomenal. Like he clicks all the right buttons. He's
Chris
analytical. R.C. Buford. He's
Buford. Okay.
The Spurs GM?
Spurs GM.
Yo, leave it to Tony G. Yo, I'll be in a random conversation with people and I'll mention this coach, and I'll be like, how the fuck do you know a coach from the Australian basketball league? I'll be like, I go to Sasquatch in the NBA, bro. Tony G, bro, he knows it all. Sasquatch is blue. I said, yeah, he's on the bottom of my screen. He follows it all, man.